seeing there, so this is going to be kind of the joint Q&A session. So we know that we probably got some folks on here, probably a good representation of folks who have done a lot of balloons and maybe never done any balloons. So feel free to ask any questions here. But Keith asked a question of Sarah about swapping out those tanks until you're waiting for the fix. Do you have to go up the hill every 3 flights to change the tanks?
No, I actually do not, because there's 2 banks, and so each bank has 4 hoses that can attach, so I can have at least 4 tanks attached. So I go up every twice a week right now, so I can get, I think I have it calculated out, 7 flights we can get per bank before I have to change it out.
Okay. So Sean asked, kind of just a general from the panel, I guess itself included, what are everybody's impressions with the new systems compared to RRS?
This is Tom. I'm gonna probably save that for my later on presentation to go more into that for the MROS. So.
Okay. All right. You'll see we threw a poll in there. We haven't really had an opportunity to use that before, but just kind of curious. If you see the poll pop up there, how many people here have done radiosondes? So I got a question here I'll ask, and I'm not sure who all on here might be able to answer. This might be a Keith question. But when I was in Alaska out in Bethel, we had those huge, we called them ISO containers. They were like the tractor trailer size. Has there been any thoughts of doing something like that for these systems, so you have a lot more gas available than the smaller tanks?
Hey, Earl, I think I'm popping up there. No, haven't heard anything like that. Most of your upper air inflation buildings have ample enough storage for the tanks we get, and I think there's a limit. I can't remember off the top of my head now. My brain's failing. There is a limit how many bottles you're supposed to be keeping on hand anyway within an enclosed building. So, but no, nothing about separating that. Okay. We're going to use as much as the old UIE upper air inflation buildings as possible.
Yeah. Hey, so this is Tim. Grand Junction is using a 6-pack at their location right now that's kind of chained together. Brian Wallerender texted me. He said he's going to look at getting something for Sarah so that they don't have to deal with what they're dealing with now.
All right. Good deal. Good deal. All right. So let's get a couple more questions in here, and we'll get into that break. And if anybody does need to go ahead and feel free to go on break and be back at 2 Central, 3 Eastern. We'll get started back then. But we had a couple of good questions here. Where did it go? Are there any plans to track the sonde on its trip back down to the surface? The temp R8 sensor is not designed to work dropping at that rate. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess that was more of a comment there. Is there any requirement with the new MROS system to fly the sondes in serial number order? We had some side discussion on that. It sounds like no, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we just got our system about 2 weeks ago, and I looked at all the boxes, and the numbers just go all over the place. It's like a lottery, so there's no way to put them in order.
Okay. And Brian, I have a question for Tom and Jesse regarding MROS zip files. Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, thanks, Earl. Hi, Tom. Hi, Jesse. For those of you at the WFOs, you may be aware that I keep track of the upper air zip file submissions from all of the upper air sites, and it includes the MROS, especially post-transition of each one of them. And I asked this question of both of you because I've noticed, and as Jesse has mentioned in his presentation, your MROS sites, we have not had any issues with zip files not being received from the MROS. So I wanted to know, what have you caught anything in terms of zip files that we would receive the NCI via FTP where you've had to resubmit them? And if not, what has been the trick to make sure that these zip files get to us? Because apparently at your sites, one of them is Vaisala, one of them is Grawl. You're having no issues whatsoever with that. So I just wanted to get your take on that, and also kudos to both of you.
Yeah, this is Jesse. Yeah, we have not had any issues with those going.
Yeah.
So I have not run into that yet. So I'm not sure what's going to happen when that does occur.
Okay.
Haven't figured that out yet. So do some more reading on that and get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, well, like I said, I've had no problems with your site. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's apparently working.
So, BK,
Yeah,
this is the issue we had at first. Is just so much clicking and connecting to LDAD and disconnecting, and so it was just mainly a training issue. So I know we had at the beginning when we started that the upper air observer would have issues. Maybe they forgot to disconnect, and then it wouldn't allow you to send the other message and stuff. So it's just over time, our observers were able to figure that out. It's still it should be automated. If they're doing the buff automated, I don't know why the freezing, significant, mandatory, and above can't be automated too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Brian.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say again, those zip files, they do get transmitted automatically, so we don't touch that at all. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah, good. And Rich at North Platte mentioned that I know I've worked with him and his office on it. They're at LBF. They had issues with the zip files to us at NCI, but it was operator error. So they were able to figure out on their end what the issue was. Thanks for that, Rich. And it looks like Aaron raised his hand at SFC.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron, if you still had the question.
Yeah. Hey, Earl. How are you? Hi, Brian. I just jumped in because I've been in other meetings. Are you guys referring to MROS issues with transmitting messages right now?
Yeah, I was asking both Jesse and Tom, since they both have different types of MROS and they have been successful with their zip files. They haven't, at least I haven't noticed any issues post MROS transition with them. So I was asking them what actually worked for them, or if they were able to figure out on their own what troubleshooting they had to do to get it. So
understood. Yeah, no, and Brian, if I recall correctly, I forwarded you the memo that went out regarding the GRAW systems and the process for shutting down the service and resetting the connection effectively, which should take care of the FTP problems.
Yeah.
It's a little more hands-on than RWS used to be because it's running the services in a different way. It's not in-house built system any longer, unfortunately. And as far as automated message sending goes, that is something that the PMO has agreed is acceptable. Originally, the systems were set up during the acceptance testing to not do that because that was the consensus of the test review group at the time. However, once it hit the field and with feedback from the field, in my TRGs for the OT&E, that's the feedback we've gotten is they would prefer that because there's so many operators that are forecasters on shift. They're no longer HMTs doing all of the flights. I don't know if that's currently configured at the sites that are being deployed, but it's something that downstream should be the default in the software at some point.
So just for kind of clarification for myself, somebody who's been out of that side of the upper air and maybe anybody else who's trying to follow along, what, are you guys talking about like the transmission of like the TTAA data and that sort of stuff, or is this a different?
Yeah, this would be, and what I'm referring to as effectively would be all the messaging. So it would be the what's normally called the coded messages, as well as the buffer and the NCI end of flight archives.
Okay.
It's a work in progress right now.
And Brian, BK, you were mainly talking about the archive, and I had a question for you, BK, on the
sure,
because there's a site we can go look at and see if the data's in there. How often does that look for the data and update to say, yep, we got it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe earlier this week I sent to Tim and KB, Tim Kearns and Keith Berger, and to the other regional upper managers and RCPMs, I sent an updated email with how you all at the WFO level can check to see how we at NCI, if we've received your files and your upper air zip files and also have processed them. There's one set of inventory listings that lets you know that IGRA, which stands for Integrated, oh my goodness, Integrated, I'm trying to think what G is, but it's Radio Sonde Archive. And IGRA processes the data. I believe Yen, who is our programmer, he has it at 2:30 a.m. and p.m. each day, so that's every 12 hours. And then intermediate updates at 8:30 a.m. and p.m. And these are Eastern time. So for you all in Central, 7:30 a.m. p.m., 1:30 a.m. p.m. Hopefully I did the hour back correctly on that. So those updates happen. You can check and see what files we have processed right down to your upper air site. And there's a new file that we created so that we could support our colleagues at SFSC when they are doing the MROS transitions. And that file, which is also included in the email that I've sent to Tim and KB, it allows you to see the most recent 300 minutes or most recent 5 hours of upper air zip files that have been submitted to us so that you can check about 15 or 20 minutes after you have an indication on your end that the zip file has been submitted to us at NCI. You can check about 20 minutes later and see if that file indeed has been received. So that's another way that you can check in as close to near real time as possible. And I want to thank our folks at SFSC for asking for that, which I think is going to help all of your upper air sites know when we at NCI have received your zip files. So a great question, Tom. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
Hey, Brian,
All
real
right.
quick, it's the Integrated Global Radio Sonde Archive.
Thank you. I spaced out on G, and for some reason I could not say global. But
Yeah, always. Yeah, I hate when that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
Integrated Global Radio Sonde Archive. Thank you, Aaron.
Not
And
all
thank you for your help with the issues that have come up.
anytime, man.
All
Yeah.
right. So real quick, because Ralph Estelle had his hand up for a while now, let's get Ralph's question out here, and then we'll go ahead and get into Mindy's presentation. So Ralph, what did you have?
Thanks. I was getting tired there. Anyway, this is for BK to get back with you from Tuesday because we had that archive problem. We chased it down to the same forecaster, so we got him trained. So we should be good.
Good
there.
deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Thanks, Ralph. Glad to help you all.
And Sean, is yours quick as well, or?
Yeah, mine is quick, but getting back to that whole message aspect, I think Bryant was probably also dealing with the TROS sites that occasionally we have sent the messages in the wrong FTP. Part of the problem is that we have four FTP choices actually to make, and one of them is NCDC and the other one's NCEI. So if and the problem is I don't have the ability to sit there and for everybody's desktop, sit there and change and configure their desktop so everybody's the same, so those mistakes aren't made. What ends up happening is they can arrange their own desktop on each one of the upper air profiles, however they wish. So if they accidentally sit there and hit NCDC and send the files that way, it's going to NCDC. You know what I mean? It's not going to NCEI, you know, that type of thing. So part of the problem that we have with the TROS, it was rapidly done. And so there wasn't a tremendous amount of thought put into that. And so we end up having 4 different windows to actually select for FTP transfer protocols. So hopefully with the new MROS systems, it's a lot less problematic than that. And it doesn't require as much user interactivity that can, you know, obviously bring a problem to the situation.
All right,
Okay.
good deal. Thank you for that.
So one last comment on that was
Quickly,
Sean.
please.
So the FTP.NCDC or the FTP.NCI, both of those are still working. So you should not have an issue with NCDC if you select that. That has not been turned off yet by our IT branch. So that would not be an issue on our end if you're not able to access that. Done.
All right. Yep, there we go. And if we need to continue that, we can do that offline or after the fact there. So our